I'm Paul Gigot. A federal judge ruled this week that the National Security Agency's bulk collection of phone records likely violates the Constitution, calling the program, quote, almost Orwellian. The ruling came just days before a White House-appointed panel released its own critique of the NSA and its activities and made some potentially dangerous recommendations for reining it in. Joining the panel this week, Wall Street Journal columnist and deputy editor Dan Henninger and editorial board members Joe Rago and Matt Kaminsky. So, Joe, you, for your sins, read this opinion and the NSA report. So tell us first about the opinion. How powerful is it as a legal document taking on the constitutionality of this program?
Well, it's not very compelling, Paul. Since a 1979 Supreme Court decision called Smith versus Maryland, metadata, phone records, information about information has not been a search under the Fourth Amendment.
According to the Supreme Court.
According to the Supreme Court, ruling by Harry Blackmun, who was no conservative, certainly. And it's, if you entrust your data to a third party, like a phone company or a credit card company, you have no reasonable expectation of privacy.
But why did Leon then say that precedent, because he's a lower court judge, why did he say that that Supreme Court precedent doesn't apply right now?
He said technology has changed so much that the case no longer obtains. But Smith versus Maryland wasn't about how or how much metadata the government collects, whether it's the local police or the NSA. It's simply the fact that your metadata is not yours. It belongs to the third party.
Well, if this is the case, then I think someone should file a lawsuit against Amazon and American Express on exactly the same basis. I mean, every day of the week we all convey enormous amounts of privacy to these web retailers, and nobody seems to complain about that. In fact, it's much more intrusive.
But I guess the argument would be made that, well, that's not the government. They don't have police powers. Amazon and American Express don't have police powers.
Well, the issue is not just that the government's doing it. People are worried about what will be done with this information. And I think your information is obviously, given the story of Target stores, more at risk in the private sector than it is with the NSA.
But the NSA actually has no police powers. The NSA is just gathering reams of information for possible clues that they would pass on. Let's say if they say someone is calling from Pakistan, a known terrorist is calling a number in Utah 10 times in the span of 2 weeks. They would pass it on to the FBI, which then would look into it. We need to get a warrant to
you have to get a warrant to be able to do that. Yeah.
It's like a sort of police gathering tips.
So what about this report, Matt, by the president's appointed panel, basically came out and said do away with that bulk collection effort, for example, and did some would put really significant restraints,
right.
Process restraints, bureaucratic restraints on these programs.
I mean, it would really unilaterally disarm the surveillance.
You think it's that serious?
I think it goes very much farther than even the White House thought that it would go. President Obama called these wise men after Edward Snowden, basically released all of the NSA's playbook, so to speak. And they came back and said, you have to curtail the metadata program. You have to change the way that a special court, a secret court, allows the intelligence agencies to look into, to follow up leads. And it curtails the president's powers to surveil overseas, basically to spy overseas.
No other country has anything like that in terms of restraints, Joe, on foreign intelligence gathering, as I understand.
And it's very difficult to create rules for this kind of regime. The nature of anti-terror defenses is that you never know what you're going to need in advance. It's always, we need this information immediately, and we need to find it very fast. So the idea that we're going to create a set of constraints beforehand is really pernicious.
But what about this argument, Dan, that the libertarians in particular make? They make it on the left and they make it on the right, that somehow, look, this is Big Brother. This is the intrusive state. And it is, as Judge Leon wrote, almost Orwellian to think that they have this vast capacity to listen in on everything we do. Is this an irrational fear, or is it just something we have to come to live with some restraints on the government?
Well, I guess I would put put it this way, Paul. Those of us who live here in New York City and did in 2001, what happened on 9/11 was rather Orwellian, I would say. And, you know, if you are Al-Qaeda, which still exists out there, and you are seeing that the United States is issuing a report like this, and is going to do what Matt just suggested, I think that you've got to be pretty happy. And, you know, Mike Rogers, head of the House Intelligence Committee, and Dianne Feinstein, head of the Senate Intelligence Committee, both said Al-Qaeda is getting much more sophisticated in the sort of weapons and techniques that it's developing. They have not gone to sleep. And the question is the United States going to go to sleep?
Matt, the question is, where is the president on this? I mean, he accepted the report without comment, said, we'll think about it, go at it. But it seems to me that he's been voting present on this entire debate. He just doesn't want to defend, or seems reluctant to defend, the very powers he's been using for 5 years.
Well, he's stuck because, I mean, his base obviously wants him to, you know, curtail this back. I mean, so does the on the right. At the same time, he has been successful in preventing any terrorist attack on U.S.
Well, why wouldn't he invoke that? Why wouldn't he mention that? Just in passing. You know, we haven't had another attack other than the Tsarnaevs.
No, he's not been willing to speak out and defend these programs. I think the key phrase in the report from the White House is potential risk to civil liberties. But there is a very real risk and a growing risk from Al-Qaeda, which is now spreading from Pakistan to North Africa, and that is something that he has to explain to the American people.
All right. Thank you all very much.